little something extra. Yeah.
How do you know what Tabrio's ship looked like?
That would be Tavio.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, there were several, actually a dozen people all around the world, actually, that came. I think they started contacting each other by remotely and then had a conference. And so it was, you had actually Bob Munson, our historian, was part of the delegation. You had Ray Ashley at the Maritime Museum. You had a couple of Portuguese and Spanish historians, navigators, shipwrights coming to try to talk about what the ship would look like. We don't have a picture of what the San Salvador looked like. There's only one painting we think that exists today of the San Salvador, and it might be in a private residence in Guatemala. But we're not sure, have just speculation. It could have disappeared, either not around or is in someone's private residence in Guatemala. Basically, they came to a very educated historical, guesses of what it would look like. Because you had this is the crux where you had the caravels, and then you had, this kind of, right at this time period is where you're kind of going into what we know as the galleons, like the Manila galleons, that were going on the Pacific and trading. And so you had these boats, these early boats built around the middle of the 16th century, it was up to the shipwright to determine what was the use of the boat, what was it going to, what was the objectives, what do we need to what's our cargo. And so they came up with, 3 to 1, or 3 to 2 ratio on beam to the width of the boat to the beam to length, thank you very much, for that specific ship. The rest of it is all just kind of boats that we know of the time that were built, and then maybe the objective of the voyage is a 2-year voyage to go to the Orient to get trade goods and come back. And so based on all of those different things, they came up with the look of the San Salvador.
All right. Like Tavio said, obviously we're going to be focusing mostly on the winter sky, which I think is the most interesting sky that we have. There's also obviously the summer sky, the transitional sky that you see, sort of like the springs and the falls. But the winter sky offers us the winter circle, which is what we're going to be mostly focusing on. You're going to see a lot of the constellations of, hopefully if the clouds get, you're going to see Orion. We're going to, you're going to make it right over to Canis Major and Minor. You're going to see like Gemini will be out, Taurus will be out. And this is all in a good day, and sort of how all those, what that story is as you make your way around, and in not only in Greek mythology, but also in Native American storytelling, things like that. Then we can also look to the north. The north is probably one of our most constant skies, obviously being in the northern hemisphere, and the things that go around Polaris, or the North Star, and everything that circles closely. And the stories of why everything circles so closely to the North Star. I guess in the spirit of being on ships, ship life wasn't always that good, but a lot of ships used line that was right-hand laid line. So the way it's spun is very important, and so the way you use line, you always do it clockwise. But everything in the heavens rotates counterclockwise around the North Star. So if you think everything rises in the east and sets in the west around the North Star, so sort of the running tally among sailors is that everything in the heavens is exactly opposite of how it is on board the ship. He said that a good place for us to view it was, there's that little viewing area sort of down, and it sort of opens up to the city, but it sits down a little bit. I think he said that was where we're going to go. So I guess the next thing I have is we'll just make our way outside. So for as far as the Big Dipper goes, it goes no farther down. That star is called Alkaid. So if you think of it, it's like a hard K, that's the end of it. Alioth, it's a very, very, very soft star. And the one in the middle is called Miser. So you got Alioth, Miser, and Alkaid. The Greek mythology that sort of surrounds the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper, or Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, the Great Bear and the Little Bear, it goes a little something like this. There was a woman named Callisto in ancient Greece. She was a follower of Artemis, who is the goddess of childbirth, wilderness, and also goddess of the hunt. And all the followers of Artemis made a vow to stay chaste. Callisto was walking through the woods one day when all of a sudden she was encountered by a being in the form of Artemis herself. So Callisto was seduced by this figure of Artemis, who actually ended up being Zeus. And sort of the running theme through Greek mythology, that Zeus encounters many people in many different forms and impregnates them. And so that's what happened to Callisto, and gave birth to a son, Arcas. And unfortunately, Zeus's wife, Hera, got extremely angry and turned Callisto into a bear. And the bear was just wandering out in the woods. When one day Arcas, he eventually he came of age, and like most boys in Greece at this time, he was very fond of the outdoors and was a very good bow hunter. One day he was hunting in the Greek woods, and he saw a bear, and he pulled back on it. He did not know, however, that this particular bear was actually his mother, and Zeus noticed it and swooped down and turned Arcas into a bear as well. But the story sounds rather sad, but it has a happy ending because he let them forever stay together in the northern sky as the great bear and the little bear. Dubi, and then the other pointer star, I believe, is Mirat, and it points right here to the North Star, and that's Polaris. As far as the Little Dipper go, Polaris is part of the Little Dipper constellation, or Ursa Minor. It's at the end of the handle. The part of the handle where the water would come out, that is called coal cob, and it's shaped very much differently. Where the Big Dipper has an arced handle, the Little Dipper has an inverted handle. So it's so they're shaped differently, and the Little Dipper is much more difficult to see. For those of you that want to observe and try to find the Big Dipper, the best month for that in our hemisphere is April, because it'll just sort of sit right up here across. It just sort of splayed out. It's really easy. You can't hardly miss it. Other things that occur in the northern sky, another one that sort of rotates very, very close to the North Star, are the constellations of Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Andromeda, and Perseus. And that all tells a story in ancient Greece. To find Cassiopeia, the biggest way to do it is if you have the Big Dipper. I keep turning my back. There's nothing over there. If you have the Big Dipper, I realize I keep doing. There's nothing there. But if you have the Big Dipper over here, it points to the North Star, and generally, more or less, on the other side, you have Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is made up of 5 stars. So Cassiopeia is made up of 5 stars, and the legend of Cassiopeia is Cassiopeia and her husband, King Cepheus. They were king and queen of a land called Ethiopia, and they gave birth to a daughter named Andromeda, and they were constantly bragging about how beautiful their daughter was, that she was the most beautiful creature on earth. And unfortunately, Poseidon got very, very jealous. He thought his own creations, the sea nymphs, were the most beautiful creatures on earth. So he cursed Ethiopia with many troubles, lots of plagues, famines, droughts, things like that. And the only cure was if they sacrificed their daughter to the sea, to let this a giant sea monster come and claim their daughter for the sea. So that's what they did. They chained her to a rock, and they were waiting there for a sea monster to come out and claim her for the sea. And just before the sea monster came out, Perseus swooped in and saved her with the head of Medusa. He turned it into stone, the giant sea monster. And so that would all be playing out right across here in sort of our northwest sky, if that was out. A lot of people, well here's a good way. So we have the 2 stars from the Big Dipper that point to the North Star. if you take Cassiopeia, it kind of looks like an upside down. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish the story. Since Perseus saved Andromeda, by the way, Poseidon was not satisfied. His debt was never filled. So what he did is he banished Queen Cassiopeia to forever show her shame in the north sky as an upside down crown. But depending on what time of day it is, it actually looks like a right side up crown. But that's sort of the story. He wants her to be always in shame. And King Cepheus is kind of in the shape of a house. And then that all occurs over here. You can normally see the point of King Cepheus by taking Andromeda, that like an upside down crown. It's also kind of a W or an M. That middle point usually points right to the point of the tip of King Cepheus. And so that all occurs just about over on this side of the North Star. If you come back, you can see that Sirius is the constellation of Canis Major. And so you can see the whole shape of the great hunting dog. You can see he's got his hind legs here, and he's got the bright one up top. That is, think of his shoulder with his head being up above it. And so that whole constellation is Canis Major, and we'll discuss the meanings right now.